Well, we just first want to thank the Wilkens and Allison Institute, Albemarle County Public Schools, and Blackboard, and especially Charlotte Wellen for pulling this conference together. It's such a great opportunity. We're happy to be here. I'm Kim Wilkens, and I come from a computer science background. I was in industry at IBM for many years, and then ran a company doing web design, and somehow stumbled onto education. And once I got involved, teaching kids technology just has become a passion of mine. And so that's kind of what brought me here.
And I am Allison Starks, and I met Kim at Computers for Kids where I work, and she volunteers. I'm the Teen Tech Lab Manager. So we're aimed at promoting technology education and closing that digital divide for low-income youth in Charlottesville, and we offer all kinds of programs and lots of good stuff, so definitely look us up. And I'm also finishing up my master's degree at the Curry School of Education in Special Education and English Education. So,
cool. Yeah. And I'm also working on a master's at Mary Baldwin in education because I figured I need some ed cred.
Of learning and love technology.
Right. So the reason when I thought about this conference, I thought it would be a good fit for this topic because I feel like we need to break the traditional ways that we view technology and computer science. And so that's where I think there's a connection here. So can coding really change the world? Well, the spoiler is absolutely it is. It does. It can. All the technology-based innovations around us, like this very conference that we're participating in, shows us that there's so many different possible ways for people to connect and communicate that are fundamentally changing the way that we govern, the way that we work, and the way that we educate. And that's all possible because there's people in the world that are writing lines of code to make these applications, the software, and the World Wide Web work for us. So one of the things about technology also is that it's so amazing. It's almost like magic. In fact, Apple in their ads talk about their iPad being a magical device. And while that's true, you know, on one hand it's true, it's also a device that's made available because there's programmers. The appeal of technology to kids is sort of that magic, what they can do with it, the things they can get out of it, the way they can create it. So that's a positive aspect of the magic. I think for adults it can be more intimidating because we are thinking, wow, I would never understand what's going on behind the scenes here. I couldn't possibly understand, so I don't even want to get behind it or maybe even use it. So
it mystifies it into something unattainable.
Exactly. So that's one of the things that we need to work around. I've got a video here, and we're not going to show this one, but it's by Douglas Rushkoff, and he has written a book called Program or Be Programmed, and it's a very short video. I encourage you to go check it out. We have links to all of this stuff, all of our content available on the Breaking Traditions website. And he talks about the evolution of learning from the spoken word to the written word, and now to the digital world and the digital media. And one of the things he talks about is that whoever holds the key to programming builds the reality in which we live. And I think that's really what we're finding. So it's so important that we don't be intimidated by the magic of technology. So while all this great stuff is happening, all these innovations are happening, we're seeing that the study in the field of computer science is not keeping pace. And it's not just that there are not enough overall people studying computer science. It is that we're ethically failing women and minorities. They are just not represented well at all in these fields. And so that is something that we need to address in our educational system.
Yeah, as more and more are using technology. I was listening to a podcast that said that most Hispanic people actually access technology through mobile technology, and that's something like we can tap into and communicate, but that's, you know, whatever cultural thing they're operating under, they have control and power to program that.
Right. So what is computer science? I was going to pose this to folks in the room, but there's, you know, I think it's a very intimidating concept, what computer science is, and we're just going to skip on to an official definition. And this is one I've actually used, and it's perfectly valid. Computer science is the study of computers and algorithmic processes, including their principles, their hardware and software designs, their applications, and their impact on society. And this is the definition brought to you by the Computer Science Teachers Association, of which I'm a part of. And it is. It's a very accurate, technically accurate description of computer science, but it really doesn't get at the essence of it, of why it would capture somebody's imagination and attention. I think too often, as scientists, we feel this need to be technically accurate, and sometimes that takes precedence over trying to explain what you can actually do with this stuff in the real world. And if you lead with this kind of definition, which I have done in the past with kids, it's not a good outcome, as you can imagine. So some other ways to think about it. I took this class that Professor Evans here at UVA has been teaching online at Udacity, Computer Science 101. And on his final quiz, I think sort of tongue-in-cheek, he gave this quiz of what is computer science. And it actually is, participates in all three of those fields. In engineering, it's understanding that you're only limited by human creativity, and in fact, computing opens up more options for human creativity to expand. With science, we're modeling the universe and trying to understand biology and other things through computation. And in liberal arts, it really encompasses all the traditional arts. It's gender, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. So really, computer science lives in all those areas. And if you're trying to reach people, especially women, they want to make a difference in the world. And really, computing is about passion. It's about being creative. It's about connecting people and changing the world. So I think this is really a better way to lead when you're talking about computer science with folks. So that brings us to why should educators care about this crisis in computer science education, especially K-12 education, because you don't often hear about computer science in those areas. Maybe there might be high school computer science classes, but really we don't hear about it often. And I think deep down, girls and minorities actually, want to change the world because they are living in a world right now where they're not valued as they should be, or they're not represented as much as they could. Right, such a huge part of the population. Right, and they really could use this as an avenue to have their voices heard and their ideas made use of. And just to put some statistics behind this issue. The European Union, this was in 2011, actually said that in 10 years' time, they will have a lack of some 300,000 people in the tech industry. Worldwide, that shortfall is 1.2 million. So that's just huge. So we know that if we get kids studying or interested in this, there actually will be jobs for them in this area. So that's one thing. The other is this, like I said, this sort of epic failure of getting people interested in studying computer science. And this one really affected me personally. I am part of that late 80s, I wish it was 90s, that late 80s group, which was the height of women studying computer science. I was part of 37%. And even then, I was a minority, and I remember that. And I've always been a bit of a feminist, so for me that was very motivating. I'm like, oh, this is great, I'm going to I'm going to show these men I can do it, and I'm going to pave the way for women after me. A couple of years ago, I went to this conference and found out that we are now at 20% of women studying computer science, and that just really blew me away. So much so that it really changed my trajectory as an educator and what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Kind of dedicated to trying to figure out how we solve that problem, because that's just not right. Another piece of information in this puzzle is that they have found through studies that girls by age 13 determine a positive or negative attitude about a subject, and if they have a negative attitude about it, it goes off their radar. Now, they might be much more flexible about what it is they like, and they'll keep those options open, but if it's something they don't like, it's gone. They're not going to reconsider it. And .diva.org has done studies, and this is one of the outcomes of kids in that age range, how they feel about subjects like computer science and technology and math. And you can see girls don't feel very good about it, where boys feel, pretty good about it, relatively speaking. So that is another piece of the puzzle that and why I want to get people thinking about computer science at middle school and younger levels, because we really have to get kids thinking about it at that age. And why? Why don't girls have a good attitude about it? This is a slide that I stole from a presentation by a professor at Stanford, which is where I actually learned all this information about women in computing. And he had did a study, and one of the things he asked for was girls to say, when you think of a computer scientist, what do you think of? And here is their response.
Both men, socially challenged, and if you look at the adjectives, overweight, pretentious, disheveled, annoying, right, unhappy, my job sucks, right, not painting a good picture, right, from those girls.
And actually, we have a comment here about interesting, because girls tend to fare better in my 8th grade algebra class, but maybe that's more for the grade than because of interest. And on the next slide, actually, it is because of interest. The Girl Scouts just released in 2012 the study they did, because they're also very concerned about women in STEM and what's going on. And it turns out girls are actually very interested in the things underlying STEM, the being able to understand how things work, solve problems, do hands-on activities, ask questions. And the girls that are interested in that and follow through are much more confident. If they can stick with STEM, they're much more confident. They do better in school. There's so many good reasons for them to be interested in those things because they carry forward. But girls believe that other girls aren't actually interested in this as a career, and I think they get that idea from the media and stereotypes, right? They are uncomfortable being the only girl in the class, and they actually feel that they'll have to work harder than their male counterparts. Again, these are things I thought we had solved many, many years ago.
So it's still popping up, and there's lots of research to support that. And then we have another comment. It's a social perception thing, and that's exactly what we're getting to with this, that we need to change the lens through which people see STEM and technology, especially for girls and for women, right, and minorities.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, and we've seen hints of this in the video game design class that we're going to be discussing later, where out of 20 kids, we only had 6 girls, and we had 14 boys, so that's over 2 boys for every 1 girl participant, and I felt such a sense of missed opportunity with that, because the girls who did participate became so engaged, and you could really see them channeling their interest into this video game design workshop where they were the minority, and I just wish more girls could have been there to see that. But the hope is that these 6 girls who completed that, are paving the way, are sharing their experience, and ultimately I'd like to see more educators too promoting those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So another video that I encourage you to look at, but we're not going to show now, is from the .diva.org. Again, a very short video, 3 minutes. But this is one that you need to show to girls, as many girls as possible, and parents, by the way. I think need to see this because it really does show the wide possibilities of careers in this path.
And so we get to the part where we get to talk about our video game design class experience. And I'm not a programmer, kind of speaks to my immediate physical response when Kim came to me with this idea. And I think we see this in students as well, with this idea like, I'm just not a math person, or I'm just not a reader. And you start off with this perception of yourself that sets the bar very low expectations. And we see that becoming a reality because of those expectations. So what we want to do is work against this idea that I'm not a programmer, and put people in the role of seeing themselves as learners rather than programmers and non-programmers. And I think that this ties so much to teachers and education, because as teachers we're so used to being the experts in what we do, and we feel comfortable in that role. And to teach technology, to teach something new like this, and for me to go teach video game design when I haven't had any past experience in design, I had to enter this really uncomfortable space where I'm put back in the position of learner or a novice. But I think that's something that we owe to our students who are entering into this digital age, and where technology is changing so fast, and they just really need to learn to become lifelong learners and not automatically categorize themselves as not a tech person, or not a math person, or not a programmer. And so our class, that was the idea of our class here at Computers for Kids, where Kim and I put on a workshop each Saturday and I started learning video game design, and Kim shared her expertise with that. And I found it through this experience, once I changed my idea of what I was, changed it from I'm not a programmer to I'm a learner, and I'm also teaching at the same time, I got so much out of it, and the kids got so much out of it too. So, and then just to move on to more specifics about our class, Kim came to me with the idea of a video game design class as a result of encountering the STEM challenge.
Right, there's a national STEM video game design challenge that I stumbled upon maybe a month before we actually started the workshop. And I've been looking for ways to bring programming into school and after school environments. And I had already been doing stuff here at Computers for Kids, and also working with folks at Mountaintop Montessori. And so both those venues said yes to bring that in, and it was sort of my proof of concept. I was hoping it would be my proof of concept that this would work. And I think it did.
Yes, and it was a quick turnaround. I mean, we had a month to plan and prepare and recruit, but I was really excited, at how much Kim had brought to the table, and just this whole idea of the challenge. It's exclusively for middle school and high school students, so it's putting that programming into the hands of these students and saying, hey, not only can you become programmers, but there's an entire competition nationwide for you to share your product, right? So, and daily working here at Computers for Kids, I see the kids on gaming websites, and we try to steer them towards the educational ones, but there's always those who slip through the cracks. So the idea of giving them that ownership of a video game and making it a little more constructive for them once the interest and the engagement and the motivation was there was highly appealing to us. So, first of all, I wanted to point out how impressed we were with the kids who would show up at 9 a.m. or before 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning for 3-hour sessions to work on these things, and they kept coming back and we were like, oh my gosh, I know, crossing our fingers. So, as we got started, I just became more aware of my own attitudes coming into this about video games, and as they changed and as I realized all the skills the students were learning and using and practicing, I started to look at what I had thought of video games as, and through this I found that video games are much more nuanced than we believe, or that I believed. I kind of saw them as a time filler growing up on Oregon Trail, played before the mornings of elementary school back in the 90s. And the thing is that you can use them for so many different things, and there's so many access points and ways that they tie into education in a meaningful way. And I think there's a myriad of possibilities, and that it's going to be really exciting to see what happens. So that was our big, excitement over the class.
Yep. And
this is, someone else played our intro. Yep. So many learning opportunities with that one. And this is us just kind of outlining why we thought games were important.
Right. I actually pulled a lot of this from Jane McGonigal, who has written a book about what you can learn and get out of video games. And we went over this with the kids, and what's interesting is, you can talk about this with the kids, but when we're going to show you how all of this actually made it into the workshop, and when they reflected on, what they learned, all these things came back out again. So they definitely were, you can learn things from playing them, collaboration. We would see kids helping each other. One of the tools they used, they had to complete quests, and some of them were pretty hard, and they would, bomb out, and sometimes that would get frustrating, but they would try again, and then they would go find friends who had gotten through that level and figure out, okay, what's going on.
Yeah, and the thing that I took away from this the most, this idea that failure is formative, because so many times we think of failure as a bad thing, but video games are this, unique space for them where failure happens, and it's just part of the process, and it's a safe space for them to fail and then just keep trying and practicing and doing, and that transfers so easily to academic skills and everything we do in the classroom when we try to get kids to think about learning as a process, and that you need, as a teacher, you need to provide that safe space, and you need to provide opportunities for them to practice and eventually meet those goals. So I was really inspired by the way that they, that they would fail, but the main idea was that they kept going and they kept doing it over and over until they reached that goal, and that's what I loved to see.
Or they would figure out something else. And we definitely saw people hitting, they would hit a wall, they had too many ideas, they, just whatever it was, their groups had issues, and they were able to come up with alternate plans, alternate solutions, work around something, because we did have an end date to get to, the project to complete. We did get a lot of pushback on that, like, oh, we need more time, we need more this, but we felt it was really important that, you're going to need to reassess things so you can get to this end point, because, one of the nice things about the contest is that there was an end date.
Right. Very real and coming end date. So, yeah.
So this is one of the ideas that we want to get across to the kids. It's the idea of flow. It's very important to video games, and it's equally important, I think, to making learning engaging. And the idea of flow is that you want to make something challenging enough that it's interesting, but that it doesn't start anxiety. And you want to make it that you're using the abilities the kids have and helping them learn new abilities, but you don't want to, as you're scaffolding to help them get to new abilities, you don't want them to get bored, like, oh, I already know how to do that. So this sort of continuum. And it's not only when you're designing a video game, but you can actually then see it when one of the products of these tools that we use that we're going to talk about is that kids could give each other feedback. And so there's even, games can be easy, moderate, or difficult, and you can design games toward that, and you can then self-evaluate or evaluate others about how you felt they were providing flow. This is actually an idea a lot of the kids got really well.
Yeah. And again, easy transfer to the classroom. This is what we want to see, that balance. And the cool thing about these video games and the things that the kids were designing was that it was so easy to differentiate. Each kid was at a different level with their programming, but they decided where they were in between these things based on their levels of experience and what they wanted for their players. So we just also wanted to share some student quotes, because we did a survey of them afterwards, and we also have them, talk about their experience. And when asked what they learned, so many of them said teamwork and collaboration, which threw me off at first because, again, I think they're still operating under that negative connotation of video games as an isolating, like those two programmers we saw in the beginning, right, in a dark room somewhere. But they learned group work and they learned teamwork, and we're going to talk about this as we saw it in the planning process a little later, but so many social emotional skills coming into it, and the students were even aware enough of that to report it back to us without, it was an open-ended question, and many of them came back with group work, teamwork, collaboration, and it was just awesome to hear that. They also learned how to follow specific directions. Games are not only a bad thing as parents think. Parents think games are also educational. Converting music from YouTube to the game, so the more tech skills, how to work with other people, learning new equipment, evaluating games was something that they said that they learned a lot. So this evaluation component that I think is a skill everyone should have, the reflective component, and then many of them reported on other specific tech skills like making backgrounds, sprites, manipulating the environment, and that speaks to that. Science, engineering, liberal arts, all those things that get tied together with programming. And when we asked them how to improve future workshops, they said, I think workshops would be even better if workshops last longer so we can have more time to practice things that we learned. Or another student said, make more sessions and give people or groups more time. So
time is definitely, but that is so real world. Right. If you are a programmer, time is always, and they're always in a time crunch.
Encouraging for us because that means that they wanted to see more.
Right.
So that was just validating for us. And then one just said it was very fun. I don't think you should change anything, which we liked as well.
Sure. So this is just one of the things, what is a game really? It's really pretty simple. You've got to have some rules, and you've got to have a goal, and there's your game. Now, the more clear you can make your rules, the more enticing you can make your goal, the better you're off with your game. One of the tools that we'll talk about, GameStar Mechanic, it's all built around this, so it's very clear what you need to do to make it
regulates you on
it, which is really great. So this is the sort of order of events that we went through with the kids. They all had to do a plan, and their planner included the dates that they were going to produce various deliverables for their game, and what, describe their game, what they think they needed for it. And these links all actually go to a Google Doc that you can use yourself for your own workshop, hopefully. They also had to do design, where they created a storyboard for the game. So, it was something that they had to draw out, but we told them, it doesn't have to be fancy, but you just need to understand, you need to show what you think you want to happen in each level of your game. And we did get quite a bit of pushback on the planning part because, I don't need that. I'm not, I know it's all in my head. I know what I need to do. But after the process, we got a lot of feedback of, that was actually important. And the way I dealt with it at the beginning was, you don't have to stick with your plan. Nobody's saying once you write this down, that's it. But you got to know where you're going. So when you need to change that plan, you know what it's going to affect down the road. How much time. How are you going to deal with the consequences of changing that plan? So that usually helps get over the hurdle of, I don't want to write this down.
Right. And I think they were just so excited to get started. That was part of it. And another reason that day particularly stands out to me, I remember, is because they had so many different ideas that when they got into teams, many of them worked in teams, and we encouraged that. But they were their own teams. We didn't assign anybody. Right, and they took the initiative to do that. And so when they started talking, they had so many ideas that there was friction that developed between reconciling different people's ideas. And, you know, things started popping up where I'd have to mediate between them. And I also saw that as an opportunity for teaching those group skills and group work and collaboration skills that, again, we sometimes don't readily associate with technology. You know, these social, emotional skills like communication, listening, critiquing, and self-regulating. And it was really neat to see the fusion of technology and these social skills and being able to share that with the kids as well.
All right. So after design is coding. Now, the whole time we use two tools, Scratch and GameStar Mechanic, and we'll tell you more about them. But the whole time they've been using these tools. So we didn't wait until they finished their design because we wanted them to get a feel for what they could do, how comfortable they were. They had to make a decision about which one of the tools they actually wanted to make their game in. So by the time they got to coding, they had already done something with those tools and were able to make a decision about which tool to use. Another part of the process was testing, and there's basically two kinds. The functional, making sure that your game doesn't have bugs in it, and it works smoothly. But then almost as important is usability. You know, how's flow? Is it engaging? Have your friends and family try it out. Get feedback. Is it easy to use? Can people understand the rules? Is the goal clear? How does it play? And then the final step was evaluation, and we did this in a variety of ways. There was an evaluation checklist that they could check their own game. We also encouraged them to evaluate each other's games, and both of these platforms provide online evaluation systems, which are great, where you can provide comments as well as rating the game, difficult, hard, things like that. But that's another area where we kind of had to take them through how you evaluate in a constructive yet authentic way.
And in this way, we were able to like pre-teach the group skills or social skills that were involved in giving constructive feedback in a shared space and making that something that the students could truly use and to revise and make their game better, which was really neat for them.
And then I always, any workshop I ever do, I try to have a sort of a show and tell with friends and family, some sort of way that the kids can show off their work to a larger community. And so, because I was doing this workshop here at Mountaintop Montessori, we had an open house here where everybody came together, brought their friends and family, and showed off their games. And it was just, it was another area I was worried about. Like, is everybody going to are they going to interact with each other since, you know, these group of kids haven't met? But, you know, kids are amazing. They
just jumped right in.
And it was games, so they got to play each other games. And Allison put out, that was helpful, put out a sticky note so they could give each other feedback right there.
And then we gave the kids the actual sticky notes when they left. Like, these are the evidence, you know, of their positive evaluations, and sometimes formative ones too, because, you know, we tried to communicate to them that even though the contest ended, you don't have to stop programming. You don't have to stop making these games. And actually, when we went back in, I had seen that some of the kids, you know, as recently as in the last couple of weeks, had made more games. So that's always nice to see. And the parents really enjoyed it too. I had so many parents come up to me and just say, you know, thank you for doing this, because I think it's great for them to see their kids involved in something that taps into their creativity and that's productive.
Yeah.
So
actually, Matt and Sarah, will let you decide. We were going to let folks, go to the next slide, actually try out a couple of these games that the kids created. If you want to do that, let me know by chatting by saying yes in the chat. Otherwise, you can go play these games anytime. These links will always be here, and we can move on. So would you like to try it? This is a game created with Scratch. What do you think? That's about right.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you click on the link, if you click on the text Snowman Hunt, it should take you to that game on Scratch. And if you want to, we'll give you about 2 minutes or so to try it out, and then come back and let us know if you have any feedback on it.
Yeah.
no, I guess we can't. Oh, you know what to do? We can play it here.
And Sarah, let me know, this is Matt, the moderator, let me know if the link is not working to the game or anything like that, and I'll try to work on it.
So for those on the recording, here is the game. And actually we'll mute it so it doesn't, well, I guess we can play it. She's playing it off. Let's see. We have to do the, oh, we have to install Java.
Oh, no.
All right, maybe we won't play it.
This was a game by one of the girls in our class, and she was one of the few to use Scratch as well, so I thought it was a very unique game for us to share with you guys.
I might be able to play it from my PC here and show it as part of the session.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
It would play when I do it on Firefox. I don't know why it's not doing it here.
It's just Safari.
Is that way?
Yeah.
Can you all see it now?
Yep. So, now we're seeing error. Oh, are you having some?
I think it's asking me to install Java as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, why don't we? We'll skip that part and we'll move on. Thanks for trying.
I can't wait to play it some other time.
Yeah. Well, the link will be there. Can we get back? Oh, just to cancel here. Okay. All right. So that's yeah. And Sarah, I'm going to give you my email address because I would love to help you design a workshop that will work within your time constraint.
And I think it's definitely good for the end of year as well because it's a nice review activity. Like when I was making these games, I was thinking of all the ways I could use them in language arts to review and to communicate different things. And
well, and there's a link at the very end of our slides, and it's a guy who does, I think he has actually language arts, and he has figured out a way to bring it into language arts, and then he's coordinated with other teachers. He teaches 5th and 6th grade, so he's gotten a science person in, he brought a math person in, and so he's got a lot of ideas for doing it too. All right, so the next thing, we won't have you do this because I'm not sure it'll work, but this is a game from GameStar Mechanic, and this is a completely web-based thing. So Scratch, you actually have to download. It is free, and then you upload the games, and this is completely web-based. So again, the link is here if you'd like to play it later.
I found the 3rd level very challenging, and Evan actually had to help me through it. So don't be discouraged. Failure is formative.
Yeah, I couldn't get through the 2nd level. So these are the platforms. I have used Scratch for at least 4 years now, and I love it. It's from MIT. There are a ton of resources, education resources to go with it. It works on PC, Mac, Linux platforms. And again, it is a program you download. It's more complex. It's actually more like programming. It's a drag and drop interface, so you don't have to do syntax stuff. But it is, there's if-then loops and decision trees and all sorts of, do until kind of mechanisms. So it definitely gets more into the programming. You can start off really easy, but it also is very extensible to doing more complex programming. The site, scratch.mit.edu, I think, there's tons of games up there. And one of the great things about it is you can download the games and then open up the code and see what it's doing. So often kids will be like, oh, I want to do scoring. oh, scoring, let's go find a game that's doing scoring that you like.
Right.
And let's download it and let's go see that code.
And we did that, I remember, with sprites talking to each other as well. Like they wanted to figure out how to have them interacting. So
so it's really a great thing for that. Game Store Mechanic I had never used before, but it was one of the platforms that was suggested in the STEM challenge. And it's all web-based and it's easier. The coding is sort of under the covers more, I guess. And I actually said, Allison, you take this.
Yeah, beginner programming, and it was very easy to use, and they had so many resources for educators as well. Like assuming that you know zero about programming and that you're teaching a class, they have lesson plans available online. You can pick and choose from those, or just implement the whole thing. And again, all this is free and easy to use. And you know, working at Computers for Kids, where our population is low-income youth, you know, all of our students have to qualify for free or reduced lunch. This is especially salient to me because they don't have access to the same kind of resources. So I love the idea that it was free, and I love that it's working towards closing that digital divide that's only going to get bigger if we don't open up more and more of these things to where it's accessible for all people. So that was especially meaningful and attractive about these two for us, because these are things that students could go home and, you know, download to their home computers and use and practice and excel at.
Right. Again, they are easy to use. One of the reasons I was so happy Allison was going to do this workshop with me is because she did not have programming experience. Because I think when I talk about doing these workshops, people are like, oh, you know, that's great because you know it all and you'll be able to do it. And I need educators to understand that it's not insurmountable knowledge that you have to get over. You have to be comfortable with that and know a little bit. Exactly. But there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of support and ways that you can learn from others. The other key is once you start this, you're going to have a kid who just gets it and is your go-to person. And at Mount Top, it's actually my son. I hardly get involved with programming issues at all. When they come up, he helps with them, and he's actually able to talk to kids, you know, at their level. So that's so much more helpful than me trying to do it at a higher, you know, sometimes at a higher level.
And we also had to pre-teach some things. Like with the programming, we had them break down task analysis, like get them thinking about the steps that are involved. Right. And like we had them write down the directions for putting on a T-shirt, and then we had them read it out loud, and Tim and I were there with like T-shirt half on our heads and half in our arms to get them to realize that there are gaps in that programming. So just like you said, kind of bringing the instructional aspect together with the expert knowledge, which I think was a great combination here.
But here as well, we had you know, experts in different platforms come together, and the kids just, once they figure something out and another kid sniffs that out, says, "Ooh, you figured out how to do this? You know, show me."
But you quickly learn who knows what, and then they're willing to share that, and it just spreads, and it's great to see. And you know, we had a student who was one of our go-to people, and he recently came with me to a community event and shared his know-how with an entire room full of people. And this is, you know, a sixth grade boy, and it was his first time speaking in front of people. And you know, 2 months ago he didn't know how to program games, and now he's speaking into an entire room full of people, telling them about his game and being so excited about it, and just so empowered by what that means for him and for his own self-concept. And it was awesome to see.
Great. So getting started, like I said, is really easy. When I do Scratch, I start the kids with this link, Scratch cards, and it's about a dozen cards, and each card looks like this. It gives the kids a thing they can do, change color, and then it shows the code. And like I said, it's all drag and drop and color-based, so it shows the code that you need to do to make that happen. And 12 of these show basically the basic things you can do with Scratch, and then I just let them go from there. As much as possible, I don't put constraints, maybe time constraints, and then depending how formal I want to get, if I want them to have a project, I'll put all the other, you know, you have to have a plan, you have to do these things, but I'm not going to tell you what it has to be about. Now, if you're doing a subject area, you know, you could constrain it a little more, but again, you want to give as much freedom as possible. And the other thing you can do with Scratch, I didn't mention, is besides creating games, you can also do animations. So that's a really fun thing to do as well.
And little quiz shows and interactive quizzes.
So that's how I get kids started with Scratch. Game Store Mechanic is even more sort of how you learn the program is sort of embedded in the product itself, right?
Exactly, which I think we saw more of our kids playing Game Store Mechanic, and I think that's part of it. You know, they really learn by doing. That's how you go about this whole thing, and I had to learn by doing. So all of a sudden, part of my job was playing, you know, these games, and I got excited about it, you know. And I'm an adult, but I think that's the fun of it. And what you do is you go through these quests, and with each quest that you get through and conquer, you win certain tools to make your own game. So you win backdrops or backgrounds, or you win sound, or you win special, you know, dialogue boxes, or you win different sprites. And that's really cool for the kids to get a very real sense of accomplishment, you know, as they complete the quest. And then they go back into the workshop and get to add something to the game, or add another layer to it, or somehow make it more challenging. So it was a nice continuum, and it also made sure that they had a certain literacy with the game before they started constructing.
Right, not just randomly throwing stuff together.
Exactly.
And this thing is very good about identifying. You have to have rules, you have to have a goal. You actually have to have those two things where you can even create a game. There is, this is a free tool as well. There is an education version, which I think is $80 a year to get one. And I went ahead and did that because I was doing these workshops, plus I'm doing stuff this summer. And what that gets you is a bunch of more sprites and a bunch of more quests. And as an educator, you can track 40 students, and so you can actually see their progress and see the games, and you can see what comments they're making. I mean, it's just very, if you like that kind of feedback, it's a very great way to use it. And I didn't tell the kids I had done this, and they all figured, I mean, they knew when they saw the mix, and they're like, this is great, there's all these new things, it's awesome. So that was good. So let's do that. Let's do our movie here. So we actually captured a bunch of feedback from the workshop on the last day. And so just so you can see our students.
Do you know if they can track more students on GameStar?
I think you probably can add more, but that's probably your for the
you got taken by someone, and you like a series of levels where you go and try to save them.
So, what it is a game where you are a square and you battle other squares. Clicking where you want to go. Square and you battle other squares. Clicking where you want to go.
It's about this guy who gets trapped in a pyramid. He falls through a trapdoor in the first level, and he must battle 3 Egyptian gods: Obelisk, Ra, and Slifer.
What it is the storyline is you're a wizard, and there's this kingdom called Alethea that you have to set out and free, and Alethea is being ruled by this evil minotaur, and you have to defeat him and claim the treasure and defeat all his cronies.
You have to just make it to the yellow gold, but you just can't get hit by the enemies.
Yeah, you just, like she said, you have to make it to the yellow star, and like mine's just more challenging because I have like 50 enemies in mine.
It's like where you're trying to get these 5 golden keys to eventually lead up to the big treasure.
To win, basically.
Yeah.
It's about a girl who is trying to get to the hospital to see her mom, but she keep running into obstacles.
And the goal of the game is to try to get to the hospital without getting into the obstacle.
Well, it's called Zara, and you basically are two arrows going around a screen trying to dodge a bunch of these red circles dropping down.
So in my game, you're supposed to search for snowmen in many different levels, and when you find them, you're supposed to tag them, and each level it gets harder.
What did you find most challenging about creating video games?
Thinking about what the players would want in the game.
Challenging about it, the whole process.
Putting it all together.
Yeah. Which part?
Like, I mean, trying to make the whole game like work with itself, like getting the timing right on everything, or just it's either impossible or just too easy.
The backgrounds. I couldn't figure them out. And when Kim told me I could make a background, I was like, wait, how do you do that?
Well, at first I kind of wanted to do a role-playing game, but that didn't really work out, but I kept the same idea, and it kind of turned into action. The only role-playing element that was left in it was you have spoils.
It was challenging because the most challenging part of it was to make everything fit together. So when I have to change the background to go to the next level, I had to make sure that it actually changed, and that everyone on that separate level disappeared when they got to the next level. And I think that was the hardest part.
The challenging thing was finding the sprites. That was very challenging. I mean, like, I'm still looking for a boss sprite.
The timers, like the time that we had to do it.
I found that programming the sprites to do exactly what you want them to do was difficult.
I've never made a game before, so it's kind of challenging making a game now and working with somebody who gets off track easily. Just crack up sometimes, just laughing.
Changing some things and see how they'll work out, and sometimes it might fail, so that was kind of challenging.
Making new scenes.
Yeah.
Planning it to figure out like what we wanted to do, and like different stuff like with the computer, like the technology part.
Do you think the things that you learn, the programming things and all that good stuff, do you think that relates in any way to real life, or pretty much stays in the realm of video games?
I think it relates to real life because, I mean, if you don't try it out, you never know how it's going to go. If it might be good or it might be bad.
Many other ways. You can use them to help people. You can use them to help people program more games. And not just games, like program simulations.
You gotta figure out what you need to do to make it exciting, what you want to do to make it fun, what people are gonna be, and you need to figure out it's gotta be in the middle of difficulty and pretty fun, like a 3-star game.
I learned that sometimes it's best to leave some glitches alone and just live with them because they're minute and yeah.
I think like some of them we can use in real life, like working within groups and like accepting like different opinions from different people.
Or following like a process, like to create something, you have to follow specific directions in order to gain depth. So yeah.
The most exciting thing about this whole program is just working together.
All right, we're back. So next steps, if you are interested and want to figure out, okay, how do I bring computer science into my classroom? One of the things I'm trying to do is start a nonprofit called Teen Tech Girls to help provide resources just for that. Obviously, they're applicable to anybody, but obviously I have a leaning toward trying to get girls involved. MIT has lots of ways you can get involved. They have a conference coming up in July at their campus on Scratch. Udacity is a free university-level courses that offer intro to computer science. They do grading, but there's no pressure. I actually didn't make it through the courses here this assignment. I was too busy. I have to sign up again. So, but you learn, you can, what is that called, auditing class? Even just doing that, you're going to learn a lot. Coder Dojo is this thing that started up in Ireland, and is coming, hopefully, Charlottesville soon. I've heard that there's people working on it. It's sort of a weekend thing that you bring kids in, available to any kid. You can't, you don't make any sort of restrictions on it. And you provide mentors at different levels, at entry level, middle level, and high level of programming difficulty. You can do robotics, Arduino, all sorts of things. And so I think that's going to be a really exciting thing once it comes to Charlottesville. One of the conferences that I just attended last year, Art and Code, is at Carnegie Mellon, and at that conference, it was the most diverse audience I'd ever seen at a technology conference. So it was so, for me, so gratifying, and it's very reasonable to go to, and if you are at all interested in the convergence of those two things, there's just some amazing people doing amazing work, and just hanging out at Carnegie Mellon is pretty cool. And then the Computer Science Teachers Association does this Computer Science Ed Week to try to get people interested, learning more about computer science every year. And the last one was in December. I'm sure next year is going to be December. But they would want to get school districts, classrooms, all signed up. There's a website, and they'll provide resources. And that might be a way to get your administration interested in embracing this.
And lastly, shameless plug for Computers for Kids. I mean, we're kind of overhauling our summer program, and we love to have people come in, especially teachers who may have some extra time during the summer. And if you want to get involved with us and just volunteer some time, we're going to have themed weeks. We're going to have a movie making week. We're going to have a photography week, and we're going to be working with a lot of different technology with a whole bunch of kids. And we'd love to have your help, your ideas, your involvement, and also throughout the year, we're always looking at our organization runs on volunteers. We're a nonprofit, and we're big into mentoring and just, we want to, it's a social justice issue, closing that digital divide, but it's also just this idea of mentorship and building those relationships with these kids who so need someone in their lives. So, yes, we would really appreciate any help, or just if you want to come check us out on our website, drop by, that would be lovely.
Get that website address for them. So I think, yes, my top secret mission that I always give kids. But so the takeaway from here is that I don't expect everybody to be computer scientists. I'm not trying to convert everybody to that. I just want anybody to know that they can, and to know that they have to be exposed to it.
Exactly.
So I think if there are any questions, I'm going to get the Computers for Kids website link on here.
So this is Matt. Despite what it may be, this is not Charlotte. This is Matt, and I'm moderating. I wanted to let you all know that you can press the raise your hand button, and then I can turn your audio privileges on if you want to ask a question out loud, or you can chat a question into the chat space.
Alrighty, well, there's a ton of resources. A lot of them are going to be linked here. And my mission now is to get computer science happening at the lower grade levels, middle school and earlier. So if any, and high school as well, obviously, but if anybody needs assistance with ideas, lesson plans, workshops, I'm happy to help you.
and I'm always happy to get more involved as well. You know, as someone who's entering the teaching field very shortly, I'd love to work with more teachers and just promote that collaboration. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you, Matt, for moderating. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. We have about 4 minutes, and then I'm going to have to get everybody to exit the virtual room 1 because I have to stop recording and download the audio from this session. Yeah, if Sarah and Beverly didn't have any questions, they could chat them in the chat box or raise their hand. But I want to just ask, as an algebra teacher, I have read a book, Radical Equations by Bob Moses, and he talks about algebra in school as kind of the gateway for students to break into technology, perhaps computer science or other technology fields. And I wanted you to maybe kind of touch on that and how computer science can be separate from math and science in school and how it can be linked.
Well, obviously, you know, math and computer science go extremely well together.
Mm-hmm.
If there's ways that you can bring that in, you know, thinking about logic, thinking, you know, doing statistics, creating. There's another tool that I use called NetLogo, where you can model. You can use modeling and create, you know, these environments based on a, you know, a weather model. One of the things is they have a model of, they call it sheep predation. So you have wolves and sheep, and if you increase the wolves, what happens to sheep? If you increase the food supply, you know, so just there's so many ways to link.
And just the nature of like the logic design of Scratch, I'm thinking, has so much to do with algebra, like if X and Y and the relationships between them. And I think that works towards, you know, thinking of algebra in terms of balancing rather than like that equal sign that students get hung up on as like it must equal 0, and so I think that definitely works to the concepts of it. And then outside of math as well, I think it has very real application.
Yeah, the other thing, you know, one of the things I think universities are finding out is that they started focusing on programming a language. So you would take a class on C, you would take a class on a particular programming language, Java or whatever, and that's not very appealing. And now they're talking about solving a problem, okay? And so I think if you can come from programming at that angle of you want to, what problem can you solve, do you need to solve, what product can you create, that is a much more valid way, because the underpinnings of the programming you can learn along the way, and they're still similar. If you have got a concept, you know, if you can understand algorithms in one language, you're going to understand them in other languages. So it's getting hung up on what language you're using. If you're using command line versus drag and drop, sort of is not the point. It's understanding that sort of logic flow behind it.
Yeah, and unfortunately we are out of time. Matt's about to take us out so he can record. All right, that's great. So, thank you so much.
Sorry.
No problem. No, yeah.